Okay, great. So thank you everyone for joining us. Liza, are you on? Maybe
Nobody's on yet, Nicole, just us.
So she got booted out when we disconnected her. I think we had Jen Brennan on. So I think when you got off and I got off, we shut the whole meeting down.
Yeah, so here
There's
comes
Liza
everybody
now.
starting to come back on.
Okay. Are you recording?
Lisa's on.
I'm on.
Hey, Jen, jump back on the meeting. Sorry, got disconnected with the girls. Had to get off and get back on to record. I'll just
Liza,
mute now.
you're there?
Lisa's here.
Okay, perfect. Nicole, are you recording? Okay, here we go. So we are recording. So I just want to welcome everybody to our call today. We have a very special guest on, Liza Pepple, Director of Product Innovation from the Juice Plus Company in Tennessee. And we have been getting the soya question for a number of years, and we've been grateful that we've been kind of grabbing different pieces of information and getting it to people. But we thought we would go right to the top dog, Liza, who works with the soya product, works with all of our products. But we really wanted to touch base with Liza today so that she could really talk to us about soy, why we love it, why it's so good, how we process it. So what I do have a number of questions, but what I will do, Liza, is I will let you kind of say hello and maybe give your background and what you do kind of on a daily basis. And if you could kind of go through, why our quality of soy is, top in the marketplace.
Sure thing. So I'm not on video because it's Friday and I'm an absolute total mess right now. So you get to see a lovely picture of me. So as Nicole mentioned, my title is Director of Product Innovation. And as part of that, I get to work with all of our wonderful farmers, along with the people who are processing our produce into powders, and also with all of the people who are taking those powders and making them into the finished products that you all get to eat every day. And it's a great opportunity, honestly, but it has a lot of detail work associated with it and a lot of knowledge that I've gained over the years doing that. And actually, before I came to Juice Plus, I was in the nutritional industry on the ingredient side and worked in the soy arena as well. So I have a really good background in soy protein from the nutritional perspective, from the manufacturing perspective, and from the research perspective to kind of bring to the table. And really the difference between the soy that we use, the soy protein powder that we use, and what most people use is in the steps that we take on the sourcing side and the manufacturing side. So our soy protein, of course, is 100% non-GMO. We know the farmers that grow our soy protein, and we know what they do in the fields to make sure that that soy protein isn't contaminated by either unnecessary pesticides that might carry over or by GMO carryover from other fields. We do have a buffer zone in between to make sure that there's no cross-contamination for anything there. So obviously they operate using the same requirements that we have for all of our products. All the pesticide, heavy metals, microbiological contamination restraints that we have for all of our produce. The soy protein also goes through those same requirements. And really then, once it comes out of the field, the difference is in how we process it to increase the protein content to something that's more usable for our products. So people don't always think about how to get a soy protein product. They know that soy is high in protein, but they might not know that a soybean is about 40% protein. So to get from 40% protein to the about 90% protein in the powder that we use, A lot of companies will go through some harsh processing steps that include hexane extraction of the oils and alcohol extraction of the carbohydrates, and then further acid wash and basic rinse to the curd of the soy protein. That's the kind of protein, wet protein part of it, to get the protein content to about 90%. Our process uses water and only water. So you take out all of the harsh chemicals, you take out the high heat that's used in other processes, and that simplifies the manufacturing to the point that a lot of the co-nutrients that are so healthful and beneficial in the soybean itself are retained in the protein that we have, but are stripped out of the protein that other people use. The standard soy protein isolate has a lot more of those co-nutrients stripped out than our soy protein does. And that brings me to another point that I was talking to Nicole about just briefly earlier, and that's the term soy protein isolate. And that term is literally the definition of a product that contains 90% or more protein. So isolate refers to 90% or higher, concentrate refers to 70% to 90%, and below 70%, any product is called a flour. So like oat flour is something that contains less than 70% protein. Concentrate, so if you see something like rice protein concentrate, that's something that contains 70 to 90% protein. And anything, whether it's pea protein or rice protein or hemp protein or soy protein, if it says isolate, that means it contains 90% or more protein. And there's a lot of concern about that term, but I wanted to clarify that that term is simply a definition. It doesn't tell you anything about the quality of the protein itself or how it was processed. And that's where our soy protein isolate incomplete is so different than what you would find in, for example, some other products on the market. We don't like to talk about other brand names, but you know who I'm talking about. So once we have the protein in the powder form, it's really goes through all of our quality steps. We test it to make sure that none of the contaminants that we would expect not to be there, that none have somehow creeped in. Obviously, that's the first step we take. And then we put it into our products and make sure that we're testing it for the protein content. We test for non-GMO, obviously, all of the contaminants, and to make sure that it has some of these co-nutrients as well. So really, our soy protein is very different than what you would find, but because of the restrictions of Health Canada, we're not really able to identify how different our product is on the label itself, because they have so many tight restrictions about how you can and can't describe something. So that's kind of where we are. So I'll turn it back over to Nicole and for questions.
Awesome, thank you. One of the big questions that we are getting lately is just around women's hormones. And there's a lot of health professionals I know up here in Canada and even down in the
I think Nicole froze.
United States that, claim that they're hormone experts in their whole career, and everything that watching or reading or believe in is that they throw soya into the whole, throw it in with corn and say, just stay away from it. It's not good. So, we have a lot of health professionals that are loving our Juice Plus. They love our research. They're joining our teams, or they want to join our teams, but they're getting caught up in I can't offer your Juice Plus Complete to my clients because of the fear around too much soy is bad for women who are having estrogen dominant hormone issues.
Yeah, and that's a huge misnomer. So,
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry?
I can't hear you, dear. Is it just me?
Can everybody else hear me? Thumbs up if you can hear me. I think
Okay, it might just be me. You go, girl.
Okay. So the one of the main issues with soy is that there's a lot of misinformation out there. If you look, a lot of that information can be traced to kind of one or two sources that have a reason why they were demonizing soy. At Juice Plus, for all of what we do, we look at the science behind the ingredients, the real science, not what somebody says they think is true, but the real science behind it. And if you look at the scientific evidence, it is fully in favor of soy supporting healthy hormone levels in both men and women. And it is not in any way associated with real increases in cancer, either hormone or non-hormone dependent cancers in humans. The best way that I would say to combat that specific argument is by referencing our clinical study done at MD Anderson Cancer Research Center alongside of University of Texas. And that study was a study that looked at ovarian cancer survivors. So this is a hormone-dependent cancer, and it included the complete protein powder as part of the treatment group. Now, the two things that I'll say about that clinical study, first of all of our clinical studies are reviewed by an IRB. It's called, it's a review board that looks at the protocol and the clinical material to ensure that the protocol is an appropriate protocol for that group, and that the study materials, in this case, the Juice Plus Orchard Garden and Vineyard and the complete powders, would not cause any harm to the study participants. So the review board looked at the scientific evidence, looked at our products, and decided without a shadow of a doubt that there was no concern for a soy protein product in a hormone-dependent cancer survivor group. If there were any real scientific evidence that supported the theory that some have that soy protein increases hormone-dependent cancers, this would not have passed the IRB review. Additionally, when we did the clinical study, we looked at the cancer, the recurrence rates in all of the groups, and the recurrence rates were lower in the Juice Plus group than they are in a standard ovarian cancer survivor group. So not only was there not an added risk for increased cancers in this hormone-dependent cancer survivor group, it actually showed that the results, that the recurrence was lower than your standard average group. Now, I'm not saying that the Juice Plus protected them against getting cancer again. That was not part of the review of the clinical study, but there certainly is no indication that it would increase risk of hormone-dependent cancers in women who are at risk.
Great, thank you. And is there any other research that's coming out on the Juice Plus Complete?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we have the Juice Plus Complete is one of the main, well, obviously it's Juice Plus Orchard Garden and Vineyard, and then also Juice Plus Complete is in one of our clinical studies that's underway right now that's looking at gut health, intestinal health, and the microflora, which we all know is key to immune function and a number of disease states. And that clinical study should actually be finishing up within the next year and publishing within the next 2 to 3 years.
Awesome. Thank you. Melissa and Jen Brennan, you guys are online. Are there any specific questions that you guys have that you want to ask Liza?
have a question. Megan here.
Hi,
Can
Megan.
you guys hear me? Hi.
Oh, yeah. Hi.
In one of Dr. Mitra's Q&As about soy, she mentioned that people who may show up allergic to soy in an allergy test by a blood test from a naturopath, for example, is typically for a different version than we have in complete, so possibly a more processed version. I was just wondering if you know anything about that or could explain that in a little more detail.
So typically, if somebody has an allergen, it's an allergen to the proteins. So if there is an allergy that shows up to the protein, I would be hesitant to say that there would be much difference between like a soybean and the protein in Juice Plus, because we don't, there's no denaturing, or there's no, we don't change the protein structure. So for some people, they might be allergic to something else that's in the soy protein isolate that's not in ours. So that could be the case, but if it is a true soy allergy, if it's the soy protein material that they're allergic to, I would not think that our soy protein would be any better for them.
Can I say something?
Go ahead, Natalie.
Well, I was just going to say, I actually did have that issue with a customer who had a soy allergy, and she did try the shakes, and she did actually get an allergic reaction to them, so she did unfortunately have to return them. But that's the only person that I know that had a soy allergy, so I don't know if that helps, but it kind of supports what she was saying. She was still allergic to the shakes, unfortunately.
Yeah, and for some people, if they have an intolerance to soy, so the allergy and an intolerance are two very different things. So typically the intolerance is to other things that are in a food, and the allergy is very typically to the protein itself. So if somebody has a soy intolerance, for example, if in the past they have had gastrointestinal distress after eating soy protein containing products, that might be very different with our soy protein containing product. But if it's a true allergy, then I would not expect there to be any difference.
Okay, so if it's an intolerance, then you're saying it's kind of a personal test, for example, so they would just have to try it and see if they felt any discomfort?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We've also found that some people, when they do the shakes, if they just do what we call the naked shake and just put the powder in, let's say with water or an almond milk and shake it, they can tolerate that a lot better than when they add the shake to a blender and start blending it up with a bunch of fruits and veg. Can you comment at all on that? Why some people are just better on the naked shake versus maybe mixing it up? I've heard something about just it gets, I don't know, something to do with the complete getting mixed up and too much air. I have no idea.
Well, for a lot of people, I drink them naked. I drink my complete shakes with water and ice, and occasionally I'll put, if I want to go really crazy, I'll put a little peanut butter in the chocolate, and that's about as crazy as I go.
Okay.
And that's simply because, yes, my stomach does not process sugar very well. And the complete has some sugar in it, obviously. And then especially if you add it to an almond milk, that also has sugar or carbohydrates. And then if you're adding fruit on top of that, you're adding even more carbohydrates and sugars on top of that. So if you look at how much you're stacking the carbohydrates, that in a lot of cases is what's happening. The other thing is that we have some great fiber in Juice Plus Complete, which is fantastic. But fiber feeds on sugar and creates gas. So if you add a lot of for the fiber to eat really quickly, then it could create a lot of an uncomfortable amount of gas at first. So if that's something that people are seeing, I would agree with you that kind of simplifying the shake to start with, getting your body used to consuming that amount of fiber, and then perhaps adding something that's a little bit lower in sugar content to the shake would be better than adding a lot of fruit. So adding more vegetables and, seeds and nuts might be much better for those people than adding berries and fruits.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else have any questions about our amazing Juice Plus Complete? Do you want to talk a little bit about the other ingredients that we have chosen to put in there to create it as kind of a superfood, whole food drink?
Sure, I'm always happy to talk about the ingredients in Juice Plus. So of course, the kind of main ingredient is the water washed soy protein, but it also contains, very natural sugars. I mean, we really look at unprocessed is really one of the key words for everything that we source. So the organic evaporated cane sugar is in there as our sweetener source, rather than something like processed sugar. This is actually just essentially raw sugar, so you can equate it to a turbinado. But again, labeling requirements don't let us say turbinado, but that's essentially what it is. And it's a obviously very, very good source, clean source. And we also have wonderful things like pomegranate powder and pumpkin powder that add to the status of it. And probably one of the most interesting things in the Juice Plus Complete, in my opinion, is our blend of ancient grains and sprouts. And one of the things that I love and hate about this ingredient is that we process that fresh for every production run. So we actually have to sprout the sprouts before we dry them to put them into every production run. So it's a very unique ingredient that has the organic amaranth, organic quinoa, organic millet, along with the broccoli sprouts, radish sprouts, alfalfa sprouts, and some pea protein mixed in to help it kind of flow better. But it's a really cool, unique ingredient. And that is something that nobody else has. That's a proprietary ingredient for Juice Plus that we developed with the actually grower and dryer. So that was really good. And then I really am pretty proud of the fact that our Juice Plus Complete contains not only protein, a good source of protein, but also a really good source of fiber. And our fiber comes from really great fructooligosaccharides, which are essentially fibers that are extracted from food. And also things like apple fiber and soy fiber. Those are really solid fiber sources. And the Juice Plus Complete contains both kinds of fiber, both soluble and insoluble fibers, which are important for digestion. Soluble fibers and the insoluble fibers work slightly differently in your body, and it's important to have both. And so we were able to get both from really holistic natural sources, and we really think it's a great product.
Awesome, thank you. Is there any last minute questions before we say goodbye to Liza and thank her for her time? Anybody else? That's all? Okay. Well, I think that answered some of the pressing questions that our team had for the soy. We recorded it. We will get it out there. We just really appreciate you and everything that you do, and we hope to have you up in Canada at one of our events in the near future. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful Friday and weekend, and we can't wait to see you at conference.
Definitely, and thanks y'all for having me on. I'm always happy to answer any questions. Y'all have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.